Hello friends, I'm Stephan Dyer and I'm recording my first ever English comedy special live from Toronto on February 24. Get your tickets now at stephandyer.com.
Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, my people.
Hello my people, ¿cómo están, damas y caballeros? Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast, where I welcome people with remarkable stories for amazingly vulnerable conversations. My name is Stephan Dyer, former banker, turned comedian and lifestyle entrepreneur. And today we have an incredible guest, Owen. But before we dive in, let me share a quick personal story about the lowest point in my career. It's late 2017. I just quit my bank job in Toronto, and to be fair, was really struggling with comedy. On the other hand, I just proposed to my girlfriend, now wife, and we're like, hey, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together, so why not buy an apartment? So I head to my old bank, Scotiabank, for a mortgage pre-approval. Now, despite having the down payment and the ability to pay, like us together combined, our application for a modest $350,000, which is peanuts in Toronto's market, gets instantly rejected. I was crushed. We were crushed. It was our dream. The fact that I did not have an employment letter and my wife was not a permanent resident at the time made our case too complicated. That's when we met Joe Purewall Mortgage Agent, our podcast sponsor from now on. That's when Joe came into our life and saved us. We did not know there was other ways to buy a home in Ontario other than the 5 big banks. Guess what? Hey, there's other banks that do that too. Joe explained the whole process carefully, and not only did we buy our first apartment in 2018, but we later sold it to buy a bigger one when my son Liam was born in 2020. The best part is Joe's team speaks Spanish. So if you're a newcomer or Latino dreaming of having your own home, that's Joe Purewall at plus 905 330 60 90. Or if it's easier, just look at the episode notes. It's all there, my friends. And now let's talk about our incredible guest. Owen is a creative director who helps online coaches and consultants build a monetizable audience that converts no matter how big. We talk about strategies for going viral, deeply connecting with audiences, storytelling techniques for social media and sales, building authentic personal brands for newcomers, and how to deliver real value on social media. And now, I'm recording this from Costa Rica in the scorching heat, as you can tell from the people that are watching this on Spotify video or YouTube. Super excited. Enjoy this episode with Owen in 3, 2, 1, go. Welcome to the Stephan Dyer Podcast. I have here the unbreakable, the unmistakable, the highly capable, the invincible Owen. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. I feel I don't feel invincible, so I appreciate that. That's gassing me up. I'm here for it. Maybe I should just pay you every day to wake me up with that kind of intro. Just get me fired up, get me ready to go.
I'll be your permanent hype man.
I'd be down. I can't afford you, but I'd be down.
We'll talk about it, man. Anything is business. I'm in it to win it. Look, my friend, I'm super happy. First of all, thank you for having me on your podcast. We had an incredible episode, and I've been following you for a few months. Obviously, we met each other at through Dan Martell, and yep. I've seen the incredible work that you're doing. I know you're a creative director. You've done over 3 million for clients alone in 2023, yep. And not only do you have an incredible creative agency and a team that does unbelievable videos, but you're super captivating with the content that you put out. I want to thank you. No, you're welcome. I don't know what to say, but I'm just really captivated by everything you do. And I want to ask you, let's go back to the beginning, because yep. I know that you quit your job to do your own thing. Mm-hmm. What was this decision like? Because I did the same, and I know it's an emotional decision. It's a rational decision. It's a family decision. It takes courage. It takes vision. What was this decision like for you? And when did you start deciding, hey, you know what? I think I could do my own thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I got the entrepreneurial bug probably back in like beginning of 2021. And so I did what everybody does, and I started searching make money online, right? And at the time I was working in corporate, I was working in IT, and I had a good job, actually. Like my team was good, my boss was good. It was a good situation. I liked it a lot. And I still felt like, man, I'm not reaching my potential. And at the same time, like I felt like I wasn't in control of where I wanted to go, right? Like where I was living, housing prices were raising, and I was like doing my math, and I was like, okay, if I were going to get a house for my family, is this going to be faster than if I just decided to like invest in myself and do my own thing? So that's where I started.
Florida?
It wasn't in Florida. I was in Pennsylvania. Wow. So that was another thing too, is like over that year, over 2021, 2022, I was like, I want to move to Florida. Me and my wife were talking about it. We were like, we want to move. And that I actually started those conversations with my employer. I was like, hey, I want to go fully remote. I want to move. And I kind of left it to like an ultimatum, because I had built one business to about 6 figures. It was in like retail, online arbitrage. Some people might have heard of it. It's called Amazon FBA, but it's essentially like a third party seller on Amazon. So I built like a 6-figure business in that, just as like a side hustle to kind of get my, like that was like the first thing I tried. And so I was like, you know what, I'm making some money with that. I would love to just kind of have more time freedom and be where I want to be, and see what it's like to move away, because I had grown up and born and raised in Pennsylvania for all my life. So long story short, I gave him an ultimatum, and I was like, I am moving. So you can either keep me or not. And I had started the second business at this point. So I was like all fired up. I was like, you know what, I'll figure it out. I'll do it. We'll make it happen. We'll make it work. And eventually they're just like, no, we're not going to let everybody here. There's no one here that's going to work remotely. And I was like, well, that's tough. So I just, I was playing it by ear, kind of taking a slow roll at it. And then, I got pitched by Dan Martell, and I attended one mastermind call, and I was like, you know what? Every person in here, they seem really awesome. They're business owners. They're 7-figure, 6-figure, 8-figure business owners. And I was like, I like hearing the questions they ask, and I like how they solve their problems, and I want to solve those problems. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm putting my 2 weeks in, and I'm just going to figure out what problems to solve. And so, throughout that process, I built this creative agency, and I was like, you know what, this is really fun. So I just want to completely focus on it. So that's what I did.
I remember you saying that in the first or second call, and that you had quit your job, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah. I was like, I have to do it. I have to get out of here. I hate, like I'm sure you experienced it in your time. Like you felt like, like you're at your corporate job or you're at your desk job, and you're like, man, I just feel so like it's almost this like thorn in your side. You feel so unfulfilled.
And it's like, what if I don't actually? I'm gonna be thinking about it every day.
Yeah. And I'd worked for years. Like I worked as an investment banker for a few years. I worked on the trading side of things, and then I transitioned to IT. But every time I did it, I looked at someone that was like 40, 50, 60 years old at my same position. And they were like, yeah, I've been here for 10, 15 years. And I was like, man, I just feel like if I did that, it'd be such a waste. And it's not even talking down to people. Like I love that people feel fulfilled in those things. And I think like if you do, that's so much like, I mean, arguably safer. And I'm glad that you're doing the thing that makes you feel fulfilled. And for me, I was like, no, it's just, I'm not going to feel fulfilled doing this.
I love it. And it's also, you have to take into consideration your family. You have kids, right? Yeah, you have kids?
Yes, got 2 kids.
I have a kid as well. Well, when I made my decision back in 2017, I wasn't married. I didn't have a mortgage, and I didn't. And I didn't have kids, so it was kind of easier to take some risks. And now with like a family, I wanna give some kudos to you because the stakes are higher. That's
Yeah.
definitely
Oh my goodness.
one thing.
But the drive is higher too, though.
Yes.
Like just to be honest, like my motivation for why is so much more powerful than anybody else's motivation, right? Like, because I'm like, every day, I'm hearing them outside my door right now, and I'm like, I'm gonna work hard because I need to provide for them, and so that's just like it makes me so passionate, and it's also like, I was thinking about this morning, like, it is a gift to do this.
Absolutely.
And even if I fail, and I fail a lot, but even if I fail, like, it's a gift to have the opportunity to fail in that extent. Like, you're doing something creatively. Like, you spend time, like I did the music thing. You're in front of people, you're talking to people, you're entertaining people, you're using your creative energy to do something for people. Oh my goodness. Like, and you get to make money doing that.
Yeah.
That's the coolest thing possible. That's it's such a gift that I get to have a little taste of it.
I want to ask you the work-life balance, if there is any. I like more work-life integration. Sometimes you're 90% work, sometimes you're 90% family, but it has to vary. I wanted to ask you how you manage it, because in my experience, when you become an entrepreneur, there is no vacation. Like it's work. You're in survival mode. You got to make some money to pay the bills, to survive. But in our case now, you also have to be a dad. You also have to be a husband. You have to find a way to disconnect. And at times you will feel guilty for having fun, because times that you're having fun is time that you're not making money. And in survival mode, it's hard to draw the line and set some boundaries where, like, okay, it's 5:00 and my day is done. I'm going to spend some time with the kids. I'm going to spend some time with my wife, or I'm going to go work out. Because the first thing you want to do in the morning, or the first priority, which is screaming at you, is I got to at least break even this month because I have fixed costs.
Yeah.
How do you have work-life balance or any integration of sorts?
I like that question. I was talking to somebody earlier this week, and I was talking about how, some people choose the 9-to-5 life, and you're working 8 hours a day, right? And when you become an entrepreneur and you become a business owner, you're sold on this idea of freedom. And the funny thing is, I do have freedom. I have a lot of freedom, but I also love what I do. And so there's the addiction to the work too. So
same.
It's also like, I have freedom where it's like, I can take today off. I can. But I love working a lot. So it's like, that's where I have the biggest problem, is that, like, it's fun to do what I do. It's fun to own what I do. And so, like, yes, I have the freedom to work 4 hours, but I elect normally to work 12 because I love hustle. And I also think, like, there's a distinct phase. I would hate it if I spent my life working the way I'm working. I would hate it. But I love the idea that, if you want to live like no one else, you have to live like no one else for a short period of time. And so it's like, if you want to have the ideal life, the lifestyle, the flexibility, the ability to impact people on a larger level, it requires a grind. It requires a hustle that a lot of people aren't just willing to take on and sacrifice. So for me, I guess, when it comes down to my value systems, right? And I was, talking to my wife about this the other day. I was like, I'm still not spending the amount of time I want to spend with my kids and with you. I don't have a ton of, like, social relationships. Like, I have a lot of client relationships, and I'm fortunate where a lot of my clients are my friends. And I have a lot of, like, business relationships, and also friendly. Like, I love this. This is fun for me. This is like friendship for me. I don't really watch TV. I don't really do any of that kind of stuff, but I do work out, and that's like a necessity for me. And I spend it probably at least an hour a day of intentional playing with each of my kids. the thing I think I would like to do more so is probably spend an additional hour a day with my wife, like hanging out and just like talking and being friends. Because a lot of times both of us can like end the day and you're like, oh man, like I was on calls for 5 hours, and she's like, I had 2 kids to take care of for this whole period of time. So it's like both of us like want to veg. But when you talk about like, I don't have any tips for work integration. I think I'm still figuring it out. I also just recognize that I'm in a unique phase of hustle, and it's not necessarily to make ends meet, but I have a 3 to 5 year vision of what I want my life to look like. And I think that deposit of time is just required. And I'm trying my best to balance it, but like I fail every day, for sure. I fail every day to be in being the dad and the husband that I want to be.
At the same time, I believe that we figure it out as we go. And if you have your rocks, like at least playing with the kids, spending some time, or at least to have 15 minutes of meaningful listening to your partner, like each other, it makes a big difference. And then having the exercise, to me, it's a must. Like, obviously, we have the 5 non-negotiables as part of Dan Martel's program. So I exercise every day. And I feel like having to do it, it makes it easier because you're not negotiating with yourself. And I used to be like, well, maybe I'm going to work out 3 days or 4 days a week. But now it's like, it's part of my calendar. And that reduction of decision fatigue really helps optimize other areas of my life. I want to ask you about creativity online, because I've seen a lot of your posts and I'm really interested in your insights about what kind of content really makes it viral. And I've had several of my stand-up comedy videos go viral, but I'm more interested in the when you work with your clients, what type of conversations, what kind of advice do you give them to have more engagement and more views? I noticed that you posted something about Alex Hormozian, how he initially went viral with Chipotle, which has nothing to do with gyms, which has nothing to do with entrepreneurship, which has nothing to do with acquisition.com. Why did that go viral? And through this insight, what kind of conversations and advice do you give to your clients?
Yeah. Well, first off, I need a caveat. I suck at viral content, man. I suck at it. Like I'm not good at it. In fact, I wanted to be really good at it, and I'm better at building communities and converting and establishing like ideal client bases, right? Like there's 2 reasons to make content, right? For ego or for marketing. And so
I love that.
in my mind, like the majority of people, when you do it for ego, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
And people tend to not like it. But when you do it for marketing, it's awesome. And I think to your extent, like to your brand's credit, right? Like comedy is like really popping off. And if you're good at crowd work, it's like look at Matt Rife, dude. Matt Rife's videos go viral like every other day. And I was someone who else is doing really well right now. I think her name is Jessica Kierson.
I saw her at the Comedy Store. Insane.
She's crushing. And she's really great. Row. Dude, did she get you?
She talked to me and my brother, but we didn't really give her. I mean, she felt like maybe she could sense we're both comedians, and she wasn't really. She grilled.
Imagine if she's
everybody.
At the Comedy Store. Yeah, imagine if she's at the Comedy Store. She's like, I'm not gonna like try to find a comedian and get banter. That's funny.
Yeah, she's unbelievable.
So like that's I wouldn't say it's a trend, but people like that style of content because it's purely entertaining. So if your goal is for marketing, it's more so about like how do you create content that attracts the right people, nurtures the right people, and then converts the right people. And you can kind of funnel those things into top of funnel, middle of funnel, or bottom of funnel content. Viral content, everything I study, everything I see, right? Everything that of all my friends and the people I work with, right? The stuff that tends to do the best is the stuff that's disruptive. I was doing some research the other night. I was doing like 2-3 hours of like just going through a bunch of profiles, looking through the past few months of everybody's content. And the trend I saw was that of the 30, 40 pieces of content that I studied, 3 of them had positive comments. 3 of them. The other percentage had people disliking it, hating it. And this was all exclusively viral clips. And I would categorize viral as like at least over 100,000, but preferably in the 500 to a million range of viral. So the thing that kind of tells me is that content that really pops off needs to be super disruptive, in the sense that it toes a line and it speaks to someone's insecurity or someone's core belief in a way that gets them to engage with it, or at least like great content offends the wrong people and attracts the right people. So I'm not a huge fan of people that are just offensive for the sake of being offensive. I think people do that incorrectly. And like, there's some people that are just like assholes. So it's like, I don't love that. But the way I've seen it done well is like, if you can hold a firm thing true that you really believe and it's disruptive, you're going to do well. So the best people and this is just the case for any business owner as well. It's like the best people are different and right. You're different than what everybody else is saying, and you're right about it. And so if you do that for a long enough period of time, you just have to do volume, right? And so it's like, that's the other thing I see for viral content. The amount of people that go viral posting once a week, no one. Mr. Beast, but even Mr. Beast did it for forever ago, and he built something where he's just going to go viral every single time. In my mind, you have to have a ton of volume in order for to test, because like each algorithm's different. The stuff that works on one may not work on the other, and it's just worth it for you to just kind of explore and see like, does this hit? And explore subjects, explore different things. I think you mentioned Alex Hormozi and Chipotle, and I don't know if your listenership is going to know who Alex Hormozi is, but for business owners, they usually have a tough job because they're like, let me just talk about the boring stuff or like the stuff that just sounds like it's an ad, or all the stuff we do, or our customer experiences. And I'm like, bro, that's like, no one cares about it. Like,
yeah, no one cares. It's also expected. So it's not disruptive.
Yeah, no. And so like, it's in the same way, it's like, you can probably tell that if you do a short that's just talking about shows that you have coming up,
yeah,
no one's like, that's just not going to get engagement, because it doesn't entertain, it doesn't educate, it doesn't inspire, right? So it's like, if your goal is to grow, then you need to kind of do some combination of those 3. You need to entertain no matter what, because if you just make educational content, it's going to be boring. You need to inspire on some level, but if you just inspire, it's going to sound too superlative. And if you don't have a brand that's established, no one cares about what your thoughts are on motivation or balance, right? And if you just entertain, you run the risk of being a clown. Like you're thinking about like the Vine guys, like all the TikTok stars. Like, it's hard for me to be on TikTok because I'm looking at them, oh my goodness. I look at some people and like, what audience are you attracting? I had one person that I interacted with, and I looked at their account, and they had like 2-3 million followers. And oh my word, the content they were putting out, like they told me that they were working, a retail job with 3 million followers, which as a marketer and probably as a business owner, you're thinking you couldn't monetize that in some way.
Yeah. But
the reality is they just attracted an audience that won't pay and only likes clown content. And it's just like, you can't even monetize that in any way. You can't leverage that in any way. It's not an asset. You're basically a theme page. And yeah, that's what frustrates me. I can get fired up about it, where it's like, it's a privilege to create. So like, if you're going to spend the time doing it, why don't you create something that people will value? Or at least that helps people in some way.
I'm really excited to talk to you because I don't know a lot of people who understand what algorithms do. And I've done a little bit of the research. Obviously, we're not like software developers, and we haven't worked at Facebook or Google, Meta. But what have you found out about the Instagram algorithm, and what does it reward? like anything would be of benefit to I think everybody thinks they know about it, but I think that
No.
you've been around and you've researched.
Yeah.
It rewards volume, certainly,
Sure. Yeah. To be honest,
or don't or not.
To be honest, like a lot of people complain that the algorithm is against them. It's not. Like your content just sucks. And I can say that, like, you look at my profile, the reason my clips don't go viral is because it's not good. I have to get better. Right. And like what I was posting months ago, I'm leagues better than I was then. And 6 months from now, I'll be leagues better than I am right now. Like that's the whole point is like the reason I like volume is because it's like it's like playing baseball, right? If you bat 1,000 times and you hit 250 times in those 1,000 at bats, you're probably going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Like that's just like statistically, like that's probably what's going to happen. So if you can consistently do that, a 250 average is great. And people tend to just like post 10 times and they're like, oh, all these suck. But the bar for that is like super low. I just think that's why I like volume on that sense. And that's why I think on a basic principle level, like if you can put out 90 pieces of content, one, you're going to learn a lot more. You're going to realize you suck a lot faster and you're going to improve a lot more, right? So you're just going to like do 90 pieces of content in a month. It's going to benefit you and your chances of being seen go so much higher. The other thing I want to say, just in terms of like, if we're talking algorithm, anybody that says they know what the algorithm wants is lying. There's no hack. There's trends, and some people get picked up by trends and some people don't, and that's okay. Good people stand out because they're there long term. Some people spark, but then they kind of crash because they hopped on, they got lucky, genuinely. They kind of like won the lottery, but they couldn't be repetitive with that level of consistency and the level of results. So the algorithm loves you posting or being on the phone every day. Every algorithm does. They want you to be engaged. The algorithm prioritizes retention after the first 3 seconds.
Ooh, very important.
That's really, really crucial. Is like your hook, the first sentence that you speak is super important. And if you're able to grip them in that and they stay, awesome. And then the other thing it prioritizes is retention. So people, like the amount of time that people spend with you, watch time, really, 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 really important. Because if it sees that a lot of people are staying for the whole video or more on a platform when everybody just scrolls, it's going to say, okay, this is entertaining to somebody, and it's going to push it to more people. And to be honest, that's the primary purpose of social media, is to entertain you. Like, we think it's to give us an opportunity to organically drive traffic. No, it's to entertain you. So if the algorithm sees that you're entertaining people and you're doing it educationally, that'll help you attract like the right audience. But like, that's why you see so many, like there's such a pretty privilege where if you're like an attractive looking person, I'm not. I got told I look like Casey Neistat the other day, which was
you also got told you look like Justin Trudeau in our video. So
yeah. Actually, I'll take that. That's better than Casey Neistat. I'll take Justin. But yeah, I think like if you look great, you're probably going to attract someone in the first 3 seconds more. And then if you have something of substance to say, or if you have something entertaining to say, or the way you're speaking is convicted, super likely that people will stay with you for a longer period of time. So I can say the whole thing where like, obviously get comments. Comments are good. I think the algorithm at this moment is prioritizing saves and shares.
Important.
So that kind of pushes it. Sometimes you'll see videos that go viral that have very few comments, but have a ridiculous number of shares because most of the engagement is happening within people's DMs. Like you have the friends, I have the friends. I have the friends where it's like, I get like 3 reels a day, 3 posts a day of just like something funny that they saw. The algorithm pushes that content. So that's going to be seen by more people.
Absolutely. I agree that there's a lot of, like in my videos, a lot of the action happens in the shares and the saves. I'm like, it's still mind-boggling to me that people save these things, like
Yeah.
can save stuff that I create, and that they share it. I would love to see people's reactions when they see it, or when what they say in the comments. But most of the action is happening in the show. I'm not complaining. It's still pretty cool. I love it.
Well, in your case, it's probably because it's funny. So they just want to they can have some kind of inside joke that they relate to the story, right? So there's like a theme with it. But viral content that gets comments, I will say the comments are negative.
Yes.
No, like unless it's a puppy video.
So negative.
Unless it's like a puppy video or like, you know, like a cancer survivor, like I'm not gonna lie to you, it's like it's gonna be you're a clown, this is cringe. You know, like that's just the people that comment. So odds are if you get that kind of feedback, some people get scared of it. If I see that, I'm like, oh, there's something here. Someone got offended at this. That means we have to hit this harder. That's usually where it goes.
Like hit it harder as in double down on that type of content, or posted more stuff?
Double down on whatever that topic is.
Yes. I agree.
So like I saw one video, and again, this is probably a guy I would put in like the clown category. I'm not going to say who it is, but I like watching his content because I just get educated by, again, the community he's establishing. And he posted something and he was like, I took my kids. He said, his hook was, I had a parent teacher conference and I saw that the teacher was 200 pounds overweight. So I pulled my kids out of school because I don't want that person influencing my kids.
Wow.
Right? So like, and then he goes on to tell a story about how he thinks the school system's broken. And then he talks about how he has in-house teachers that he hires and he gives them $10,000 raises every year or whatever. But no one cares about that. No one cares about what his thoughts are on the school system. It's the fact that like people are offended that they're thinking, why is it an issue if a teacher's overweight? Why are you insulting teachers? Right? Like, so if I saw the kind of content, it means like I would double down on that if I want to get views. If the goal was to get views.
I love it. I had a video like about a year ago, maybe 6-7 months ago, that it's still getting hate comments, and it was about daycare in Toronto. It was me on stage and me being like, daycare in Toronto is $2,000 a month. Mm-hmm. Like the government started helping recently, but I'm like, $2,000 a month. That means that by the time my son graduates daycare, I'm gonna have spent like $70,000 on daycare. This kid better come out a fucking astronaut out of daycare. But like, this is a Harvard tuition pretty much. And like 4 years old, already $70,000 invested in daycare.
Yes.
I'm like, $70,000. You know what I can do with $70,000 in Costa Rica? I can buy a daycare. Whole daycare. And then the people were like, go back home. If you don't like Canada, blah, 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 you're lying. Nah, nah, nah. And I'm like, listen, I didn't make the rules. It's true. And then people are fighting in the comments amongst each other. And I'm just like eating popcorn, seeing the views go up. Oh my God.
Well, but to be honest, like, so like if you want to go like, and this is again, I'm not saying this because I believe these things. I'm just saying if you want to get more of a response, let me paint the picture. If I was, I don't know how this would work in comedy, like as a comedy clip. But if I were to be a business owner who thinks that you should be spending more time with your kids, I would use that same topic and I would say something to the extent of like, you're a bad parent if you put your kids in daycare. Mm-hmm. Right? And that is just guaranteed as a hook format for anything, guaranteed to get someone offended because one, there's people that are good people that both want to work jobs, right? So both spouses, both partners want to work. And they're just they have daycare as a portion of that cost, and their justification is that they feel more fulfilled, and it allows them to have more opportunities to do things as a family or have more money, whatever. But all of those people are going to comment and say, "How dare you say something like this?" Right? So you're touching at a subject of like insecurity of you're questioning whether I'm a good parent because Absolutely. I'm not willing to spend that money, or just like it's ridiculous to spend that level of money. And like you're pulling in the immigrant thing where it's saying like it's like there's financial, like the insecurities you speak to in that clip probably are like financial insecurity. You're talking to someone that's spending $2,000 a month and saying it's too much.
Yeah.
And someone's feeling insecure about it. And you're saying that other countries cost so much cheaper and it'd be so much better if you were just to leverage your money in that way, which is like, So like everybody, like those countries are probably feeling more insecure. Your country's more insecure, like, and it's financial insecurity too. And it's about kids. And so like you're hitting like 6 different nails in the head of topics that people need to talk about.
And there were some people like, oh my God, a lot of people were like, oh my God, I was thinking about going to Canada, but like $2,000, a lot of people, like most people in Latin America, like I would say 90% of Latin America is not making $2,000 a month.
Yeah.
In total.
Yeah.
So let alone paying that for daycare. So there's like a lot of things like of people thinking like, oh, I was thinking about going to Canada, but how am I going to afford that? Other people are like, well, no wonder Canada needs immigrants to replace like population. Other people are like, well, no wonder you can pay that because like you make money in dollars. You must be making so much money. If I go to Canada, I'll be a millionaire. So it's like a lot of people. Yeah, there was. I didn't think it was going to explode like that.
I love it. Yeah, and it's like it hits the nail. It hits the nail, and it's also like probably the way you presented it too. You were just like it was comical, right? So like there's people there sharing it just because it's funny, and it's offensive, and like it's just going to be so much easier.
Yes, I know that you're very passionate about storytelling. How can you implement storytelling in content for people who have never taken a stand-up class or a storytelling class or a sketch comedy class? Do you have any storytelling advice for dummies that you can share, especially for my audience? Because I'm not saying they're dummies, but I'm saying that not everybody considers themselves seasoned in the social media game. Yeah. But adding storytelling is something that can take you from okay to good and good to great in very quickly. Do you have any tips that you can share?
Yeah. So let me say this. I'll try to provide an example of it, just so like I can illustrate. Everyone has dinner party topics. Everybody has their dinner party story, right? You're hanging out at a party. Someone says what's something that's happened that's been interesting to you recently. And it could be somewhere you traveled, someplace you went, something you did, right? So I'm assuming that the person that you're interacting with has lived life and that you're like, okay, they need to just tell, they just need to tell this information, tell this story. Something for me, like there was a woman who across the street from me was eaten by an alligator. That's a crazy story that happened. I live in Florida, and it's insane. Whenever I say that to someone, I texted a friend and I was like, hey, so I just found out like across the street, an alligator ate somebody from me. And
an alligator ate a person?
Ate a person. Yes.
What?
Exactly. Okay. So that is just a crazy concept, right? That happened. It's tragic. But the fact that it happened, right? It's like a shark attack. It's like, that's just, people watch Shark Week because of shark attacks. Alligators eating people is not common. And the fact that it happened across the street from me gives me a relation to it. So if I were to talk about this on social media, I probably would have to come up with the most absurd statement initially to hook someone in. And I'd probably say something along the extent of like, and I'll make this video to test it. An alligator ate someone across the street from me and I feel scared for my life. Right. So like, that's like a simple,
very good
hook for my life. Right. And so like, and then I can go into the sub hook, a second category, which I have to almost have a but statement or a kind of like a framing of how I want to have the trajectory of where the story is supposed to go. So I would say something to the extent of like, 3 weeks ago, I saw a news article that talked about how a 13-foot alligator ate a woman who was in the park that is across my street. And I saw this alligator 2 days after it happened, and I knew nothing about it. Right. And so like and then I can talk about the storytelling narrative of like, I was taking my wife and kids. We were walking, and I saw an alligator in the pond, and I said, I was like, oh my gosh, that thing looks like it's like 12 feet. So I went back home, and it started chasing us, and I was like, all right, I'm not about this, right? I'm gonna come back home, and I'm gonna see, like, I'm gonna look, like, my mother-in-law sent me an article online, and I looked at the article, and I read, 13-foot alligator kills woman. They humanely execute it, and then there was a 12-foot alligator that they could not get. And it dawned on me in that moment that the 12-foot alligator was the one that I saw, and that was the one that was still alive, and it's in the pond across the street from me, right? Terrifying. I could frame that story in like 6 different ways, but if I wanted to do it for social media, I'd probably add an initial hook, a sub hook, a but statement, and then some interesting conclusion. And then if you have any interesting visuals that's just like entertaining for somebody, it's awesome. And
can you elaborate on the second hook and the but statement?
Sure. So like a secondary hook has to give someone, like if I've grabbed you for 3 seconds, I have to kind of, people use visual hooks and then they use secondary hooks where essentially like they add a reasoning for why you should stay till the end. So there's an element of like, here's the frame, here's the subject headline. And the hook is really, it's the same principles that like newspapers have used for hundreds of years, right? Where it's like, what's the most succinct, grabbing way that I can communicate this point? And it works with I statements and you statements. How to doesn't really work, but it's like, I did this, here's how you can do this, right? So like something that like connects where either you're going to connect with my story or you're going to think you're going to get some kind of value out of it. And then the secondary hook is going to talk about something that almost leaves it up in the air. And so maybe my secondary hook, if I was telling an alligator story, would be like, would you, if you found out that alligators were in your neighborhood, would you, if you hear the story, can you tell me if you think that I should move? And then that kind of gets someone gripped in for the payoff, right? I can go into my visual hook and then my storytelling narrative of like, this is what happened, this is my experience to it. And then finally just saying like, should I get out of here? That's my call to action. And someone else can, like, that's encouraging comments, that's encouraging shares of something that's interesting in my life. It has nothing to do with my business. It has nothing to do with creativity. It's just like, is it rooted in history? Is there some kind of illustration I can show? And is it crazy enough that it gets someone to have a reaction to it?
And the but statement?
The but statement probably more so works if you're sharing an opinion. So like, if I'm doing like a how-to, like if I was talking about creating content on social media, and I was talking about best ways to format a hook, I would say, this is the most important thing to do. Like this is the most, like this is how I craft my hooks. And the majority of you are doing this wrong. But if you listen to the end, I can give you the 3 practical principles, right? So like I can give you the 3 practical principles that I use to craft my hooks. Number 3 is crazy, right? So like there's multiple, I'm giving like 2 to 3 reasons why someone should stay invested through the whole process. And it's much more likely that I'll have retention because they'll likely get a payoff. And then I actually have to deliver. But yes.
So interesting, man. I love it.
You put me on the spot, but I love this stuff.
No, it's great. It's great. I teach a class at the University of Toronto called Business Presentations and Public Speaking. And we were looking at LinkedIn yesterday because obviously it's about public speaking and delivering amazing business presentations. But LinkedIn is also important in business because you influence other people. And
yep.
We live in an attention economy.
Yep.
So we were adding each other on LinkedIn, everybody in the class, and I put my LinkedIn, my feed on the big screen, and we were just going through people's posts. And there's a concept in the class called Area 47. And Area 47 is a part of the brain that falls asleep when things are predictable. and wakes up when things are unpredictable. So in public speaking, we call it an Area 47 opening. In other words, the hook.
Yep.
In other words, your first sentence in your caption needs to, the objective of it is for people to want to learn, read the caption, to click more.
Yep.
The objective of the hook is for people to stay for the next 30 seconds. And in other words, the objective of the game is to spark curiosity. Because when you do that, you're not asking for time, people are giving it.
Yep.
And we were going through LinkedIn posts and analyzing captions and images. Because you could have a post, but if it doesn't have a picture, it's going to be hard for people to read it.
Yep.
And we always talk about less is more, having pictures that are attention grabbing, having posts that understand the lazy rule. In other words, if it's too crowded, if it has too many numbers, too many graphs, full of paragraphs, nobody's reading it. And I like to think, I tell my friends, if you want to get some eyes on your LinkedIn profile and get some job offers or have some decision makers look at what you've accomplished, have captivating content, because when they read that content, and if you tag institutions and if you tag other people, then the people that work in those institutions will also get exposed to that post, and the people that you tagged and their friends will get exposed to that post. And once you get people's attention, they're going to click on your name.
Yeah.
And they're going to go and see your experience. I like to think that it's a game of unexpected. So the Area 47, how can we disrupt? How can we do what's not expected? In other words, I have a friend, for example, he works in trading at a bank here, and he's always posting these like graphs about like the market and the S&P 500. And it's like a boring picture of the S&P 500 and a boring caption of like just super technical language and nobody's reading.
Yep.
But I'll bet my house that this guy posts a picture of him and his wife and his kid, and it'll get more likes and comments than he's ever gotten combined of these like boring one like kind of posts. And I'm not saying you should stop posting about what you're passionate about if it's the S&P 500, but what I am saying that rocking the boat a little bit, posting stuff that's unexpected but that connects with audiences, that it shows a little bit about who you are. They're vulnerable. They show your truth. They show your pain. They show that you're approachable. They show your passions. Do you like playing volleyball? Do you like playing soccer? Do you like running marathons? Are you passionate about Paw Patrol? Did you just go watch the movie with your kids? These make you a multi-dimensional person that allows you to connect with different types of audiences, get more eyes on your posts, and people click on your name, they go on your profile, and then they become more interested in you, trust you, and they're more likely to hire you for the higher paying job that you wanted initially. So that's my advice for people who want to post more and they don't know how to do it. Post more, but do unexpected stuff. What's your take on getting more eyes on posts on LinkedIn, for example?
So what you're talking about fundamentally is brand. And everyone has brand. Brand, we use it. That's a word that people throw around, and personal brand, that term is thrown around a lot. All it means is who you are and what you represent. And if that's definable by other people, everyone wants to determine what their own personal brand is. And the reality is you don't get to. And like, cause like, let's take Gary Vee, for example. When you think about Gary Vee, you probably don't think about VaynerMedia. You probably think wine, flipping, like thrift store flipping, right? Or you probably think Keynote. You probably think trading cards. You probably think like these are all things that he references, and it's wrapped within the context and understanding of motivation. There's motivational elements to every single thing he communicates. So the majority of people interact with him on those levels where he actually makes money and the things he actually does, all of his actual wealth building stuff is in completely different mediums. It has nothing to do with those categories. But the content he puts out, which is top of funnel, relates to everyone because they say, that's really cool. I connect with that. that makes me want to learn more about you, and they might go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Of then engaging with what you actually do. Jets, yeah, exactly.
The thing
so
with the Jets is that
yeah. But like you said something before and I really liked it. Even written content, you need to be disruptive. And the best hooks and the best content is disruptive and captivating and engaging. And people, you mentioned like taking an example of someone that talks about the S&P 500, right? There's a way to make that kind of content more dynamic in terms of its copywriting, and even more dynamic in terms of its visual. But the reality is not everybody's going to want to care about it. Things that people do care about is money. So if you talk about money in general and what you do with money, people will probably be more interested than your interpretation of what the market's doing. And even more so, the reason that photos of family and stuff do better is because people, like you're saying, like multi-dimensional characters, and they're more interested in what they can relate to versus what they don't understand and can't relate to. So if your goal is primarily to educate on things that you know, you have to start on the basis of what can someone relate to fundamentally about me. So people can most relate to me being a dad. That's probably the most relatable thing that I have. Me being a husband, most relatable thing that I have. Maybe me being a Christian, right? That might be like the most relatable thing that people have with me. Creative kind of goes down a rabbit hole. Creative director kind of goes down a further rabbit hole, right? Person making content, even further. There's a lack of relatability with someone who's just living life, which means that the things that will probably do the best for me in terms of content have to do with the fact that I was homeschooled, have to do with the fact that have to do with the fact that I worked in corporate without getting a college degree, right? Have to do with the fact that I like, those are the things that, just like you're saying, like, oh wow, like it's interesting to hear about that from someone because you can relate to your experience. So the fact
that's a great opening line. How to get an investment banking job without a college degree. That's a great hook, bro.
Dude, yeah. And like that's a story that people probably can relate to or care about. And if I can make that educational, where someone feels like I can get an investment banking job if I just did this, right? Like that, there could be a payoff into it and it adds dimension to my character, right? But otherwise, people are just going to brand me as like whatever. If I just talk about content, if I just talk about ways to make social media content, like the average person doesn't want to make social media content. The average person feels guilt when they're on social media. So, so like, I just like, you have to be relatable, and you can make boring stuff relatable if we're talking about LinkedIn, right? Like it is a trend, and it's always going to be the case where you need to add some level of graphics to it. You need to add a picture to it. And the rules of marketing have never really changed. If you're more disruptive and then your copywriting is more engaging, you're not boring, you're structured, right? Instead of writing big giant paragraphs that no one wants to do, you segment it, right? And you do more bullet points, and you do kind of like more of an outline structure. It's just going to do better, especially if it's interesting.
I like your example in the beginning of if you send your kid to daycare, you're a horrible parent or something. You don't want to spend time. So you could do the same hook, or even in a caption with a picture on LinkedIn of like why the S&P is going to disappear in the next 3 years. That's 100% going to get some clicks. Obviously, like then you get into like a clickbait or whatever, but we're all playing this game. Like we're all posting to get eyes on it. So might as well play the game.
Are you different and right? Like, for example, if you're saying that, what you're saying is different than what everyone else is saying, and you're right, it's going to work. It's going to get
exactly. I love it. I want to ask you as we start to close the episode. You're very good at helping people build a monetizable audience that converts no matter how big. But for my audience, who most of us are newcomers to Canada, to North America, they see monetizing their audience as something so distant that they wouldn't even know how to start. Mm-hmm. Can you give us 3 ways of potentially monetizing an audience, even if it's 500 followers, 1,000,
Yeah.
5,000,
Yep.
what easy ways to, what are 3 ways to monetize an audience that you can think of for somebody who's potentially starting and doesn't have 100,000 followers?
Well, yeah, let me actually just give you the truth here. The majority of the 3.2 million that I've driven in revenue this year alone was with someone that had an audience of less than 10,000 people.
Wow.
But here's the key factor. Are you attracting the right audience? We talked about this kind of earlier. Are you making clown content? You're not going to monetize it. You can have millions. You're not going to be able to sell t-shirts, right? But you could also attract a small demographic of passionate people. And if they're the right audience, then you can make hundreds of thousands of dollars from it. It's very possible. So I want to start there where like the vanity metrics are completely pointless. It's about the quality of the people engaging. The thing that is going to work, that has worked for all time and will continue to work, especially on social media where things are segmented, is making your audience feel like they're in a tribe with you.
Yeah.
We want it to be like an us versus everyone else. And you're either with us or you're not with us. So like even for you, right? Like I would want to make your shows feel like an experience, and that someone that follows you on Instagram will have an even more unique experience than any other member. That's what I would want my Instagram followers to feel, where it's like, I care about you as a person. I'm keeping everything else secret. I'm not posting this anywhere else but for you. And if you happen to be on here and we're together, then we're sharing this moment together, right? Like that makes me feel special. And that's a way I can like make someone feel like I can monetize that, making someone feel special, making feel like they're in. And that anyone else that follows me, these are our inside jokes. These are our bits, right? Like these, an example of someone that does this really well, I think the YMH podcast, Tom Segura and
Yes.
Christine, like all they do is talk about degenerates and do degenerate things, but they've cultivated a listenership where like they literally, they had a bit with Garth Brooks where like they like spammed every single one of his social media profiles saying like claiming that he's a serial killer and saying, where are the bodies? And it became like a news article, right? But like that was cultivating a community, a small passionate fan base that just grew over time. Yeah. But like everyone that watched the podcast and then contributed on social media, they felt like they were in. They felt like, because then they would go on the podcast and they'd read comments from people on Instagram. They'd read that's just a great way to monetize it because there's an exclusivity. The next best way is like we talked about this too. We're talking a lot about viral content. I don't believe in viral content when you're a business because you don't need it. Like I'm saying, like you need a community. So some people are able to do that at mass scale. It's really hard. But converting, like making 80% of your content, let's say like a Pareto principle, 80% of your content being general and attracting people and trying to relate to people, and only 20% of your content actually converting, where it's like super bottom of funnel and it's a path to sales. Some people are scared to sell. Other people, when you feel confident in what you're offering and the thing you're valuing, like they feel confident selling. So the issue with social media is you feel like you're selling yourself. And that's a lot of times people struggle with just putting themselves out there in the first place. So if you're at a point where you're like, man, I only have 500 followers. How do I monetize this? What do those 500 people value? Is there an information? Is there some level of entertainment, right? Is there like, do you feel like the friends that you have, if it's 500 to 1,000 people, it's probably just friends and family, right? So like, what do they value? What do they care about? What do they need to hear? Do they need to be inspired? Do you know their problems better than anyone else on social media? So like this person's dealing with this. And I know 7 people that we talked about needing to go to the gym and they're not going to the gym. And so I'm going to make content about my process of going to the gym because I want to motivate them. I want to do it for me to hold myself accountable, and I want to motivate them to hold them accountable. So it's like, you can do that. And then you can definitely for sure monetize that. If you sell you sell t-shirts, or you sell maybe an affiliate supplement, or maybe you sell accountability group. where you say, everyone here, we're all going to do this and we're going to have this mission and I'm just going to organize it. But if you're following me and you're in on this, this is what you need to do to join it. And this is what we're going to be passionate about. You can do that with most anything. I think it's easiest to do with gyms, but you can do it with anything.
The power of the community, yeah, it's very hard to build. But once you have it, it's like the 1,000 true followers, 1,000 true fans, right?
Yep.
If 1,000 true fans give you $100 each, you're set. Done. You don't have to do anything else. So I 100% agree. And then the last question is, if somebody wanted to build the community, what platform would you recommend? TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tinder, Grindr.
Grinder. For sure, OnlyFans. 100%.
OnlyFans, yeah.
No, YouTube is the most monetizable platform. And it's not, I'm not talking about from a revenue ad spend thing. In terms of like, a subscriber is the most valuable person to have.
Wow.
The most valuable follower on any of the platforms. TikTok is the least valuable because the way their algorithm is set up, like their For You page just doesn't really prioritize who you follow. It's just like, is the video doing well? Because they just want you to stay engaged. I think I'm gonna specify this. It completely changes on what to prioritize most based on what your industry is and who your ideal client is, right? So like if you're targeting CEOs and business owners, yeah, you shouldn't be on TikTok. You should be on LinkedIn and Twitter and probably YouTube. I am also a proponent of like doing it all. But if you're going to take it one step at a time and you're saying like, how would I rank them? I'd say like for me and maybe even for you, like, let me use you as an example. You want to sell tickets.
Yeah.
And then you want to sell coaching. The best way I'd structure it is like for ticket sales, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, Instagram, probably the most important three. If you want to sell your business stuff, it'd be Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, my friend. And the closing question, the champagne question that all of our guests get. And it goes like this. If we were to meet a year from now with a bottle of champagne, what are we celebrating in Grant's life?
I like that question. That's really
End
cool.
of 2024, we meet up. I go to Florida. I bring alligator for dinner.
Yeah. I'm more of a whiskey guy, but I'll fly with it. Bottle of champagne.
Bottle of whiskey.
Too. I would like to look back and see. I am a new thing I'm passionate about is celebrating small wins.
I like it.
Not just celebrating big wins. So I could throw revenue numbers at you, but at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't matter. If I am still trying and still learning and still doing what I love, then that's a reason to celebrate. And I will constantly be taking 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. But as long as I'm still taking 3 steps forward, I think that's worth having dinner over.
I love it. That means a lot. I love the small wins because I just read this book called The Happiness Advantage. And basically all it says is that a lot of people think that when they're successful, they're going to be happy. But the reality is because you're happy, you become successful as a result. And small wins, gratitude is a huge part of it. So I'm a big part of celebrating all the time, being intentional. I'm going to Florida tomorrow. I'm going to Tampa.
You're coming to Tampa?
I'm going to Tampa tomorrow, brother, to see my dad. And we gotta meet up. I'm performing on Saturday and Sunday, but in Spanish. But even then, like you're in Tampa, right?
I'm in Tampa.
Yeah, let's do it up. My son and my wife is coming with me. How old are your kids?
I got 3 and 1.
There you go. My son is 3. Let's get a play date. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm arriving tomorrow around noon. I don't know where my dad. I know where my dad lives, but I don't know exactly where. Like 15 minutes away from the airport. We're gonna get a play date going. I'm gonna message you so we can talk,
Let's
and
do
we'll
it.
go. Maybe we'll have the champagne before next year.
Maybe champagne this week. Yeah, maybe that's what it is.
All right, brother.
That's right.
Thank you so much,
Cool.
man. It means a lot that you would have me on your podcast, and it's a pleasure, obviously, and a learning experience to have you on mine. I know my audience is going to really benefit from this. Big hug, and thank you so much, man.
Peace and love. Peace and love.
Grant Owen and Stephan Dyer on the Stephan Dyer Podcast. Ciao, ciao.
Gracias por escuchar el Stephan Dyer Podcast. Arrivederci, my people.